You've probably heard that Apple supply chain companies are shifting operations from China to Vietnam. Apple had made it clear that its supply chain manufacturers in China must establish factories in Vietnam or India within a specified timeframe. Vietnam is widely recognized as the most suitable country in Southeast Asia for setting up factories. The advantages that roll off the tongue include abundant labor and low costs. The transition of Chinese factories to Vietnam can be roughly divided into 3 phases. After 2010, Vietnam took over labor-intensive industries like footwear and apparel from China primarily, due to considerations of factors such as labor and land costs. Since the 2019 U.S. China trade tensions, which mainly targeted the electronics sector, there has been a second wave of shifts, with electronic companies exporting to the United States leading the way. Now, foreign company supply chain strategies are shifting from all in China to China Plus, with Apple's transition as a prominent trend. However, at the same time, Chinese Apple suppliers have embarked on a transformation journey, with a focus on the electric vehicle sector. They aspire not only to reduce their dependence on Apple but also to reposition themselves in the manufacturing industry. Why are Chinese Apple suppliers so actively trying to detach themselves from Apple, and can they truly succeed? I won't keep you guessing until the end of this video. I'll give you my answer right now. Today, we'll discuss whether Chinese companies can break free from Apple or if Apple can abandon its Chinese supply chain. Okay, let's get started. Well, in my opinion, in the future, they will definitely succeed, and even reverse its position with Apple in one fell swoop. It is true that many Apple supplier companies want to get rid of Apple's control. Even well-known Apple supplier companies such as Foxconn are trying to transform. The relationship between Chinese Apple suppliers and Apple is divided into 3 stages. The first stage took place in the 1980s. Apple has always looked down on Asian manufacturing. They would rather choose to build factories in the United States and Europe, but the results are getting worse and worse. By 1997, Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy. Apple's sales fell sharply that year, with a year-on-year revenue drop of $1.7 billion, an annual loss of $1 billion, and the product's market share also dropped to 5%. If the situation is not reversed, Apple will completely disappear from this world within a few years. So Jobs returned to Apple. Everyone may know this story. Jobs saved Apple and pushed it to the greatest technology company in the world. How did he do it? In fact, it used the supply chain in Asia. At that time, Apple hired Tim Cook heavily to build Apple's industrial chain, and Cook proposed the idea of a global supply chain. After that, Apple began to place some components in Asia. Manufacturing in Asia is not only cheap, but also very efficient, and some technologies are even better than those made in the United States. In 2003, under Cook's persuasion, Apple began to try to put the assembly line in China. But Jobs was still skeptical about Chinese manufacturing deep down in his heart. So they produced a batch of computers in an old factory in the United States and a new factory in China at the same time. As a result, the manufacturing efficiency of American factories is only 80% of that of Chinese factories. The difference in yield rate is more than double, and the difference in production costs is also huge. In this comparison, the Chinese factory broke Jobs' inherent concept, and this Chinese factory is Foxconn. The addition of Asian companies saved Apple from crisis. After 2003, Apple began to fully transfer the industrial chain. So Chinese Apple supplier companies ushered in the second stage, the sweet cooperation period. At that time, Jobs' positioning of Apple was still based on innovation, so the core of their industrial chain was built on the premise of great products. As long as companies that can help Apple improve the performance of mobile phones, Apple can provide technology, capital, equipment, and even talents. Therefore, Apple suppliers during this period are very happy. Their relationship with Apple is more like a partner, and the two are mutually beneficial. To give a few examples, if an Apple supplier company has technology but no money, Apple will provide financial support in various ways, and even pay for the goods in advance, and it will be enough to pay for the goods after they are shipped. In addition, in 2005, Apple sent technicians to the Chinese company to jointly develop touchscreen technology with them. It took 2 full years of cooperation between the two companies to have the smooth touchscreen function of the first generation of Apple mobile phones. Since then, in the production stage, Apple's engineers have followed up the whole process to help the Chinese company solve the problem. In addition to talents and funds, Apple will even provide equipment and technology to help Apple suppliers produce high-quality components. For example, Apple has helped Feigang and Lens to purchase equipment and production lines, and provided technical support and so on. Therefore, at this stage, Apple supports the growth of Apple suppliers, and Apple suppliers help Apple create the most competitive products, which is a win-win model. But this pattern began to change after 2011. When Jobs died of illness, Apple lost their soul, and it was Cook who built the global supply chain who took over Jobs. If Jobs was an inventor, Cook was a capitalist. Jobs is serious and obsessed with technological innovation. In order to create the most perfect product, he can talk with Apple's collaborators all night long. Cook, on the other hand, is completely on the contrary. He doesn't care about technology, but pursues ultimate stability and profit. In order to control the supply chain, he can formulate countless rules to restrain cooperative manufacturers. So Apple's supply chain ushered in the third stage, which is also the stage that Apple suppliers most want to escape. In 2012, Apple issued a 100-page annual supplier social responsibility progress report. This progress report is a review of Apple's suppliers' code of conduct to ensure that they're doing their part, and is published annually. If not, Apple will order the supplier to make rectification. If the rectification is not in place, Apple has the right to directly remove the supplier. Therefore, in the third stage, Apple used various means to control the autonomy of Apple suppliers, which made it impossible for Apple suppliers to expand or cooperate well with other companies, which made them suffer. In addition, these Apple suppliers are not only suffering, but also getting lower and lower profits. For example, in the fourth quarter of 2021, Apple's comprehensive gross profit margin reached 43.8%, the highest in 10 years. At the same time, however, Apple suppliers are in dire straits. The gross profit of Luxshare Precision fell by 6%, Gore-Tex shares fell by 11%, and the gross profit of Desai Battery fell by 8%. Many companies have experienced losses in Apple's business, so they turn to the automotive industry. But why do they all choose new energy vehicles? The answer is very simple, because new energy vehicles are more promising than mobile phones, and they are more in line with their positioning. Furthermore, these Chinese supply chain companies have gradually realized that without their own brands, they are merely engaged in contract manufacturing, and even having a brand means it's of low quality. So why do we always let others lead us by the nose? In reality, China's industrial transformation and upgrading have been ongoing, and Chinese factories are all seeking new paths. New energy is just one of their many options. Moreover, Vietnam and India are unlikely to replace China within the next 5 years. Vietnam, as China's neighbor, benefits from risk diversification, while India is a massive emerging market inherently attractive to Apple. Both nations hold growth potential, but they currently struggle to shake China's manufacturing foundation. In 2023, China's share in Apple's production of phones, headphones, PCs, and tablets will decline, with India's share of Apple phones rising from 4% to 7%, and Vietnam's share in the other 3 product categories also increasing. Despite the growing significance of Vietnam and India, a closer look at the production country distribution of Apple's supply chain still reveals an astonishing 94% average share maintained by China. So, are you optimistic about the transformation of these Chinese Apple suppliers? Please put your comments below and share your insightful ideas with other people. Please keep following our channel and like our videos. Your precious time with us is highly appreciated. See you.